and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who deserves a statue outside of every stadium in the entire world. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. It depends on if we're going with like a good statue or the Ronaldo statue, the statue.
It'll be a mix. It'll have some that are like a perfect likeness of you, some that are you in a heroic pose, some that are Cristiano Ronaldo, and some that James Corden has designed.
Okay, perfect. I like to get a little variety in there. You can't have them all looking idealized with the sharp chin and the jutting jaw, because then suddenly you're a dictator, I feel like, and that doesn't really look, that's not a good look either.
We do a positive Taylor statue outside of Old Trafford for you.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, it's just me like, things
no,
will get better.
Arms folded, looking proud. Lots of detail on your beard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
You into it?
I like that more than just like me with like head hung sadly as my dog looks at me wondering what's the matter. That's been more so the case lately.
Hungover Taylor.
Also that. Can you get the bloodshot eyes into the statue?
With just a little bit of red.
Yeah.
All right. Enough Taylor statue talk, but it does relate to the first of today's listener questions.
There we go.
We have what I'm just going to call many listener questions today. These are often our favourite shows because we talk about random things that we did not expect to be talking about.
We sure do.
For example?
Starting off with stadiums, JT Guads asks, what makes for a good soccer stadium? What makes for a bad one? What are some of your favourites you've been to?
All right. I'm going to start with the stuff that I like in
Listeners, I need to interject
stadium.
to say that much like Kenan Thompson in his early SNL days, Daryl just mouthed the words to the question I was reading them.
Did I?
As I was reading them, and I enjoyed it immensely. Yes, you did.
I'm not aware I was doing that.
I'm not sure he is either.
I also wasn't aware Kenan Thompson did that.
I wasn't either. I went back. There was one. I forget which one it was, but he's very clearly reading the lines. It's Tracy Morgan.
Someone else's lines.
It's like a Tracy Morgan, like the prison sketch with like Scared Straight. And he's just like in the background, like very clearly saying the lines along.
So I think this is good evidence of why this is it's a tangent. Evidence of why Kenan Thompson's been on that show so long is he took learning the lines so seriously.
Yep.
He learned other people's lines.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
Pretty good.
He's been my favourite thing on SNL for years now.
Yeah. He can make anything unfunny funny.
His Big Papi thing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I mean, his Steve Harvey, come on.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
That's terrific.
Anyway, to the stadiums. So what makes a good soccer stadium?
Yeah.
What makes a bad one? What are some of our favourites? Here's, I think we can answer the good and bad at the same time. I like clear lines of sight.
Okay.
I like to be able to see, to buy a ticket and know whichever seat I'm in, there's not a pole in the way. There's no
obstructed views.
There's no obstructed views. I think that is the key to a good stadium. Then you can buy a ticket with confidence.
Yep.
Yeah?
I think that's probably, first and foremost, the most important one.
Yep.
Then you kind of get into aesthetics a little bit.
Yeah.
One for me is...
Are we going to go back and forth? I like this.
Yeah, that works for me. I should add, I've not been to that many stadiums, like especially ones outside of the United States.
Yeah. I've been to fewer than people would expect.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been to the same ones a lot, like a lot of time at Molineux and then a lot of time at City Stadium.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then it's just occasional trips to other ones.
Exactly. That's about where I am, except less in England and everywhere else. Mostly Turkey and the United States. But I will say, I think I very much, from my limited experience, enjoy the close-up atmosphere. An example of that I would say that I think you and I both enjoyed was Audi Field, the new DC United Stadium. I think they've done a very good job of sort of putting you on top of the action.
That's about the steepness of the stand, isn't it? The seats are almost on top of each other, but not enough to be dangerous.
Exactly. Like I think Stamford Bridge is similar. I think the Bernabeu. I shouldn't say they're similar to Audi Field, vice versa on that one. But it's like the idea of being right up on top of it, not just because it gives you like a great vantage point, but also because it really enhances the atmosphere. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to NFL stadiums, if you go see a preseason friendly in an NFL stadium, they're much more spread. They're much more like wide out. I think a FedEx Field is a very big example of that.
So you're far away from the field, essentially. So one of the things I've got is I like a stadium where the beginning of the stand is as close as is safely possible to the actual field. One of the things I don't like about Molineux is there is like a sort of a asphalty, concretey thing. After the grass ends, there's that ring. It's not like a running track, but it's like almost like that. Yeah. And then the stand starts. I always think, we could all be 15 yards closer.
We could be.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I love that.
And then obviously the running track factors into that too. Anything with a running track, I think that immediately kills atmosphere.
Yeah, you put 8 lanes between you and the action.
Yeah, and then some. Yeah, so and especially if there's a dramatic goal, it happens all the time in Italy when they want to celebrate the goal. They got to go on a bit of a run to get to the crowd.
But at least you know how far they ran.
Well, that's good.
One thing I really dislike is nosebleeds.
Okay.
So a stadium I've been to, I think just once, Wembley. Wembley's obviously gigantic, but that means that if you buy a ticket that's like, I kind of learned this the hard way, in the upper tiers, and then you get seated not right at the front of the upper tier, you are very, very far from the action, and it's almost like not being there. You know what I mean? It's like getting concert tickets and you're super far away and you have to like get binoculars to see who's on the stage.
Yep.
So I've had that experience at Wembley and I do not like it. So I really don't like anything where the seats are too high and too far away from the action.
What did you see at Wembley?
England, USA.
Oh, well,
yeah.
All right. Who are you rooting for?
Yes.
All right, here's my question then. So I do think that the nosebleeds is like a sort of comes hand in hand with NFL stadiums and larger stadiums in the U.S. Mm-hmm. We have both been to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Atlanta United / Atlanta Falcons stadium. Where are you on that one? Because that is it's kind of purpose built for both. We were in the press box for the MLS Cup final, which was high up. I think we still had the Portland fans above us, but I would still say I felt like we were able to see everything that was happening pretty well.
I think maybe Mercedes-Benz is pretty steep.
Yes,
yeah,
that's probably a good point.
Yeah,
I think probably
in a good way
the domedness of it, the retractable roof, also kind of probably holds in some of that sound, makes it feel like you're even that much closer to it. Yeah. So I'd say like you can have some bigger ones that do work.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just wondering if that would
if
that would constitute a nosebleed or not to you.
I guess height-wise, yes, but in terms of closeness to the action, no. So maybe nosebleed is the wrong way of saying it. It's about distance from the action is the problem. And if you think Mercedes-Benz Stadium is, I know it's not in the heart of downtown, but it's in downtown Atlanta, right? Like we could walk to it from downtown, whereas Wembley's out there, like North London and then some.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, walks are walks. Sometimes you need them. I would say that.
What I'm saying is if there's more space, then they tend to expand the footprint of the stadium. And if you're working with a constricted footprint,
that makes sense.
Like how do you feel they're working with a constricted footprint, the DC United Stadium? And that's why it ended up being so steep. I don't think it was because someone was like, let's get everybody on top of each other. It would create a really good atmosphere. It was like, we only have this much space to work with and we've got to squeeze all these seats in. What's the steapest gradient we can get away with?
Yeah, but that works.
Without lawsuits.
I think this analogy will make sense. Have you ever done the thing where you I know you're not big on like home improvement and stuff like that, but have you ever done the thing where you add like more shelves?
The show or the verb?
Both, yes. I hope you just like the show more so than actually making your living space nice. But like, have you ever done the thing where you add more shelving, you add more storage, and you're like, now we'll be able to spread out, it won't be so cluttered, and then you just end up adding
more stuff.
You just add more stuff in. Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's what it is. It's like you could turn that into like you could have a park around it and like walking space, and then you build this nice stadium, and now you can make it into like a thing where you walk there and you hang out and then you go in.
Yeah.
And instead it's like, we'll just make it bigger and wider. That's fine. Another thing that I do really enjoy are stadiums that you can kind of feel they're lived in, basically. You can feel the history to them.
Okay.
This isn't soccer.
Old stadiums.
Basically, yes, because this isn't soccer, but like I think about Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
I loved going to old Yankee Stadium. And
I've been to Fenway Park and had the same feeling.
Yeah. And then the new Yankee Stadium is, like, I think rightfully so, referred to as like a mausoleum. Like, you have obstructed seats. It's much quieter. It's smaller, I think I'm correct in saying. It's easier to hit a home run. But it's just because it doesn't have that same history, you're kind of not as willing to forgive some of the issues there. If it's a stadium built in 1920 and then they've added on to it, you're sort of like, well, then it's going to be a little bit imperfect. But when it's kind of purpose-built and brand new, it can be a little bit too clean and a little bit too pretty. And I don't quite like that either.
Okay, I got some more things that I really like in the stadium. Covered stands.
All right.
Literally put a cover so that when the rain comes down, it hits the top of the stand and not the fans underneath.
That
right?
is a logical thing to like.
Same with the sun. If it's super baking hot, especially here in the US when we play during the summer, you want the covered stand to keep the sun from baking the heads of all the fans.
Again, I think we go back to vertical because you can do that really easily if you build on kind of on top of the one that came below. What happens with the NFL ones again is like when you spread it out. I've seen many games where it was like fans were underneath the covered sections and they kind of like all crowded underneath there so as not to get wet. If you build pretty vertical, you can cover more and get more people in. So there you go.
Here's another thing I like. Oh, sorry, no, we're going back and forth. So
no, go ahead. Keep going.
Corners filled in.
Okay.
I love a wraparound stadium where it's not 4 separate stands with big gaps in between. I love it where they've filled in the corners or like built it wrapped around all together because you just get that all around feel. Wolves are working on it.
See,
they got one corner filled in so far.
I'm okay with it again if it's sort of like representative of they had like this big surge in the 60s, so they added this stand, and then they got really good again in the 80s, and they added this stand, and so you can see it. That's what Besiktas's old stadium. I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Their old stadium used to be like that, and I loved it for that reason. I also think you'll see stadiums like I think they're almost always in Portugal for some reason, but you'll see stadiums that like don't have like one side filled in so that it can like open up to a mountain view or there's like a cliff right up against it. That might be Braga.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is. They have that. And like, so if you're building in the surrounding like environment, then I'm kind of okay with it not being a wraparound.
I guess that's the thing I do love is a dramatic backdrop, but you can't get that everywhere, right? You're not going to get that in the West Midlands.
No, you're not. I want to. You probably will not. Yes, like this is the lovely factory and the lovely road that leads to the factory. We wanted everyone to be able to see it.
Also, the factory is closed down.
Also that. I would say, like I said earlier, that I don't necessarily enjoy new stadiums. I think that if the gimmick to the new stadium, I don't think this is just that I'm a Washington professional football team fan, but like I never had any desire to go to the new Cowboys Stadium because it's enormous and it felt like their whole thing was, we got this giant screen, like can you believe how big this TV screen is? And it just sort of was like, that feels a little gimmicky to me. I genuinely don't mean that to be disrespectful. It did not appeal to me. I know there's other aspects that did appeal to people, whereas I look at, say, Minnesota's
Are we back to soccer?
Minnesota United's new stadium.
Allianz Field?
Yeah. I always get confused because there appear to be three possible names for stadiums at this point. It's like Audi something, Mercedes something, and Allianz something is about where we are. And then Middle Eastern Airlines as well.
Or Sports Direct.
Yes, that too, of course. But like there you've got a uniqueness to it. You've got the kind of like lit exterior that you can change colors on and you can make it reflect different things. You can have it be purple for Prince if you're Minnesota. And like I appreciate that sort of just interesting feature that I think makes it more of a unique thing to visit.
All right, so I've got the same thing.
What you got?
I like something distinctive on the outside.
There we go.
Or some distinctive feature. Exactly what you just mentioned with all the alliances. Also, the Wembley Arch, I really like just this big arch over the top. It just gives it this defining feature. And the one that really came to my mind, do you remember the 2010 World Cup in South Africa? In Johannesburg? I can't remember the name of the stadium. It has a sponsored name now, but it deliberately looked like some sort of clay pot with a fire underneath it. So it had like the exterior had like it appeared to be like a clay pot type thing. It's got a name like Calabash or something. And then the bottom almost looked like fire with with it heating it underneath. So any like cool distinctive thing like that I think is great.
I think it's telling that neither one of us, aside from like we went sightlines early and that's about it. Like I'm not too worried about grass or anything like that. I mean I would prefer it be grass than turf, but in terms of the types of grass, just play on natural grass. I would say so. I think some of my favorites, I mentioned Audi Field, I've enjoyed that recently. When I first went to Turkey in 2005, I went to old Ali Sami Yen Stadium. They have the new one now further out in Istanbul, like on the kind of outskirts, such as they are, because there's no real outskirts of Istanbul. It just keeps going.
Oh, that was one of my things. Downtown is better.
Yeah.
Right?
But this used
Suburbs
to be,
not so good.
This used to be like as close as possible to the area where Galatasaray High School is, where Galatasaray were kind of initially formed. But it was this just clearly very old stadium. It was one of the ones, like I'll try to find the video of it. I could probably post it, of a game I actually went to. Somebody else like filmed video, but you can see the upper deck like kind of moving up and down because there's so many people. It's probably over capacity. But it's just old. It's poured concrete. It's like hand painted. The ceiling is like yellow and red. You wouldn't get that anymore. You don't see a lot of metal. It's a lot of concrete in there, which is risky, but like you get the sort of history of it just being there. Same thing with the old Beşiktaş. As I said, you could see the different parts when they were added and at what point. There's like, oh, this is clearly the newer stand that was added in the 90s. This was added in the 50s. So the
history of the team is there, right? Which you do lose when you move stadiums like Arsenal and Spurs. You lose that old history, unfortunately. I get why you do it, but
And I'll say, like, Beşiktaş do lose the history because they did get rid of it used to be BJK İnönü Stadium after the second prime minister or president of Turkey. I forget which
you're telling me Mustafa İnönü.
There you go. But it was built on I think it was the stable grounds of Dolmabahce Palace, which was the later palace of the Ottoman Empire. But so it's like right on the Bosphorus. You've got this beautiful palace next to it. You've got a beautiful mosque next to it. You've got a park on the other side.
Can you see the river from the stadium?
Yes, the Bosphorus. Yeah, you can look out and see the Bosphorus. It led to the greatest Football Weekly pun of all time when Chelsea lost to Beşiktaş away, and I think James Richardson's line was, where it's not just confused Chelsea fans or confused tourists who are wondering, is this the Bosphorus? There you go. Solid. But what Beşiktaş did was took that stadium down and built on the exact same spot. So they have a brand new stadium. I think it's Vodafone Arena, Vodafone Park, something like that. So it's a brand new stadium. You lose some of the history, but at least it's in the exact same location. So you don't then drive past the old location that was wonderful. 20 minutes away is the new location, which is pretty but not quite as historically significant.
Okay, my favourite, weirdly, despite my many trips to Molineux, I mean, it's almost like your parents' home, right? It's not your favourite house, but it's like a house that you love because it's, you grew up there. So I have those feelings about Molineux. But my actual favourite stadium in England is Villa Park.
Okay.
I've gone because I've got Villa fan friends, so I'll often go to see the Villa.
Up the Villa on the board.
Oh, yeah, Hugh put that there, didn't he? Hashtag UTV. So Hugh's a guy I've gone to Villa Park with a lot. Villa Park, I mean, it's big, right? It's 42,000, so it's 10,000 at least bigger than Wolves. It has this one big stand. The Holt End alone holds like 13,000 people. Used to be the biggest in England. I think it's been surpassed by the new Carp at Anfield and also Stretford End at Man United when they expanded. But what Villa Park has is a brick exterior, right? So it's a big 40,000 seat stadium, and at least I think two of the ends have this really nice red brick, which is kind of common in the Midlands, exterior that gives it like this old feel.
I thought it was Sadness brick in the Midlands. Is it red brick?
Yeah, it's the
same.
Cool.
Yeah,
I like Villa Park for that reason.
All right, I'm good for that. I should add, I've been to England once for one day. And then I think I've had layovers there. That's about it.
You and I have to do a Total Soccer Show trip. Yeah. I know you've met my parents when they've come over here, but I'd love to take you around like the Midlands, essentially.
Yes.
We could go good places as well.
All right, that'd be fun. I would be probably less freaked out about going through security because I was really... We went there to basically get my wife's engagement ring and then go back to Turkey. But I was like, I feel like this looks very weird to be coming from Turkey and being in London for one day, which I had to declare. So, yes, I would like to go back. I'd like to spend some more time there.
All right,
but then I should ask you then, since I've talked about like my favorite in Europe, sort of. I'm wondering, what's your favorite in the U.S. that you've been to for soccer?
Ooh, okay. So City Stadium, Richmond Kickers is like my parents' house, right?
Okay.
I guess Audi Field.
That's a good way of putting that.
I mean, I really love Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but I knew that it would be impressive because I'd heard so much about it. So that's definitely the most impressive soccer stadium I've been to easily. But I think Audi Field I was most impressed with because I was prepared to be disappointed.
Okay.
Because DC United are really on a run of just doing things wrong, right? And we'd heard bad things about the stadium, and there was stuff falling off in the first couple of weeks. Remember, like someone got hit on the head? Like,
there was.
And there was the problem with the sightlines with the camera and the sunset and all that. So I was really ready to go there and see this thing that was like held together by duct tape. And instead, it was a very impressive stadium with like good food options, which is another thing maybe worth mentioning. Good food options that aren't too expensive is a major thing. So I think it's Audi Field.
All right.
Yeah.
I do miss RFK. I would like to go back in time
Do
to
you
before.
really?
I mean, yes, because I like Bobby Kennedy, but also I'd like to go back in time to before Magneto destroyed it to figure out what it was like when it first opened. Although then I guess I'd be supporting the Washington professional football team of that era, which is even worse. So maybe not. Never mind. I'm okay with Audi Field.
The lesson from that X-Men movie as well is they didn't have to do anything to change the stadium to look like it was the 60s or 70s. Because it basically hasn't changed.
Troubling.
Yeah.
Troubling. Yes. All right. So we have many more questions to get to. I'm going to stop slamming RFK and instead talk about today's sponsor, which is Wix.
Wix. So everybody needs a website. You need a website host and you need a way to build it.
Is that a new law? Everyone has to have a website?
Yeah. Trump passed it. Executive order.
All right. That's troubling.
Not really. If you're marketing stuff or if you just want to have a presence, you need a website, you need a way to build it. Wix is the way to build it.
You can create whatever you want yourself, whether you're a novice, a business owner, or an advanced designer, professional website builder.
We're like 2 out of 4 of those things, I think.
I think you are. I'm definitely more novice on these things.
I'm advanced novice.
Okay.
The good news is, even at advanced novice, I can still build a website using the Wix platform. It's essentially an interface that lets you build a website without having to get deep into the code, which is what the more professional designers are probably doing.
Yes, but it allows you to as easily as possible create a website that looks good, because that is a huge thing. Much like with podcasts,
you don't want a bad looking website.
Well, as in whenever anybody asks me what's key to starting a podcast, the first thing I always say is audio quality. That if you tune into a podcast and the audio is not good or the levels are all over the place, you probably won't check it out again. Similarly, if you're looking
I'll give it 30 seconds max.
Exactly. If you're looking for a website, if you go to that the landing page, or if you maybe click one link and it just it doesn't really work, or it looks very unprofessional, it looks like it was made in the 90s, it's you're instantly okay, this maybe isn't the most reputable. I'll go for one that's slightly more aesthetically pleasing.
I'm not hiring this company, right? Which is why we have chosen Wix to build our new website. Not for TotalSoccerShow.com, because that already exists. It's a new website for the spin-off show that we've long been promising, and we are pretty close to launching. Pretty close?
Yes. It still requires a lot of work on our part to get it done. It's a lot of pre-recorded stuff, content there. But that's nice because then Wix takes care of the heavy lifting when it comes to the website. So we can just focus on the show itself.
We focus on the audio,
Yeah, they give us reliable hosting to keep the website safe and secure, custom domains and mailboxes, email marketing, and much, much more. Wix is great for all of those things.
Can we reveal a little bit about the new show? I'm not going to give away the name or anything, but essentially it's going to be evergreen soccer content weekend. It's going to be just me and Taylor. There's no one else involved. So it's going to be very Total Soccer showy, but also something a little bit different. I hope you're excited for it because we've been building it for a long time and we're very excited about it. And the website we're building, as we mentioned, we will be building with Wix. And if you'd like to do the same, you can get started today for free at wix.com/TSS. And so then you build it for free from there. And then when you want to upgrade to premium, you apply the code TSS at checkout. You get 10% off.
Once again, that's wix.com/TSS and apply code TSS at checkout to get 10% off when upgrading to premium. Thank you very much to Wix for sponsoring today's episode. Now back to some more listener questions.
It's actually two related questions, but I think they're sort of worth tying together and answering at the same time.
All right.
So Billy Height asked, what went right and what went wrong for Borussia Dortmund on Saturday? Is the Bundesliga title race really over now? Similarly, John Roder asks, what do you think has gone wrong at Dortmund this year? And I think the two are obviously somewhat related because Dortmund's title challenge faltered this past weekend with the 2-2 draw against Bremen after taking a 2-0 lead.
I mean, it's been faltering, but yeah sure.
But I think that's a good microcosm of the macrocosm of them having, a multiple point lead at the top of the Bundesliga and Bayern Munich slowly but surely catching them up and then overtaking them with 2 weeks to go.
Okay, so I guess right there I would say, but does it feel like slowly but surely? Because it feels to me like it's been a very, Dortmund were on top, Dortmund were no longer on top. And it does feel like for how big of a lead they had, it does feel like a sort of abrupt change, which I think is where this question is coming from. But then I think in doing some research and doing some reading, Michael Cayley has a good statistical analysis for The Athletic.
Oh, I'm glad that.
It feels like much more of a born out over the stats. It was sort of a long time coming, the kind of return to normal form for Dortmund. And similarly, the return to normal form for Bayern. It's just a very good form for Bayern usually.
I actually think in many ways, nothing has gone wrong for Dortmund. They're having a really good season points-wise, considering new coach, a young player like Jadon Sancho that they just took a flyer on, and he turns out to be brilliant, right? It's actually, things have gone really, really well. And normally they would have just finished second or third or fourth. But because Bayern was so bad under Kovac at the start of the season, they had this lead at the top. It's almost like Bayern were missing for the first part. Now things are back to normal where Bayern are dominant and they're going to get their regular 80 points or so, which is what Bayern seem to always get. And there's no hope of this Dortmund team catching that Bayern team.
I know, because 2 games remaining, it's a 4-point difference at this point, so it would require Bayern losing and drawing at a minimum. That seems unlikely for Bayern to do both of those things. So I think Bayern's resurgence and their turnaround in form is definitely a huge part of the story. I would say, though, that I do think there are things that have led Dortmund to falter because they had that lead, and for it to no longer be there, and quite the opposite, now they're behind by 4, to me it means that there was definitely some big changes. I don't know necessarily if this weekend factors into it because I think this weekend was kind of simple mistakes. It was Roman Bürki getting megged. It was Akanji not shepherding the ball out of bounds. It was not quite tracking. But I think the bigger thing for me has been a huge one is the injuries and the sort of struggle to find form and Lucien Favre having to experiment as a result because now we have, say, Julian Weigl as a center back, which is not a thing we would have expected to see at the beginning of the season.
We also, I think one of the major things that was going to be a problem for Dortmund all season is the lack of strikers. Their only real recognised centre forward is Paco Alcácer, and he seems to be, from what I understand, it's through a series of multiple injuries. He's never become fully fit enough to just regularly play 90 minutes. So they had to keep bringing him off the bench, and he would miraculously produce 80th minute winners, 90th minute winners. This past weekend they started him, right, which was, I think, really, really rare. But then when he's not around, it's, okay, Marco Reus is this great attacking midfielder. Let's put him up front. Ditto Mario Götze. And I've definitely seen games where that was kind of the problem, is that you have a bunch of attacking midfielders and no actual striker. And so suddenly they just don't have that edge.
That I would agree with that. I would say, though, that Marco Reus, for example, I think 15 goals, 6 assists on the season. So he's more than capable of scoring, obviously. But I think the other issue...
But there are also games where he didn't.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
And there's also games that he didn't because he didn't play. And that's, again, it goes back to the injuries for me, that both Götze and Reus, more so, I think Reus missed all of February, which probably is a big part of why suddenly they didn't look so good in the Rückrunde or whatever it is, the second half of the season.
And both of those players have histories of not playing full seasons through injury. Right? It's part of the deal with those guys that you have to expect going in.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and then I think there's other little ones we talked about. Like I talked about Dortmund last week, or Christian Pulisic last week rather. He had a good game this weekend, but again, like it hasn't been these sort of lights out, like Pulisic on one side, Jadon Sancho on the other. It's all coming together. It's all like totally working, and they're destroying everybody.
A lot of injuries for Pulisic this year as well. Right? I think his season has been stop-start because of injury.
Yeah, and so I think that's a big part of it. So yeah, to your point, like you're putting a lot of faith into Jadon Sancho, and he's repaid it for the most part. I mean, he's been lights out for some games, very good for others, and just okay for a few.
Actually, doesn't their dip in form coincide with Jadon Sancho just started the season like an absolute barn burner, right? He was like, out the gates, I finally get to play. Let me show the world what I can do. And I think there's like an element of enthusiasm and adrenaline where he's just going at it for the first few months of the season. And he's still been good, but there's like this slight trail off where he's not just destroying teams single-handedly, which is really unrealistic to expect one player to do that throughout an entire season. And I would bet good money that his statistical output tracks. When it tracks downwards, that's when Dortmund start to track downwards. Yeah. It's almost like he carried them through the first part of the season. And then and then he tails off a little bit, and suddenly Dortmund aren't winning games because he's not nutmegging three people and then putting it in the far corner.
Yes. So there's that. And then the fact that we're talking about Paco Alcácer and Jadon Sancho. Sancho, I think, signed last season. I could be wrong on that one, but like
Sancho?
Yes.
In the summer, essentially.
Okay, yeah. So signed this summer. Alcácer brought in this summer. Witsel, Thomas Delaney.
Witzel's been brilliant.
Key players brought in, but the other one that I read, like I read a think piece about this as well, and one of the points that author was making, I forget who wrote it, was that it hasn't, like for what we think of Dortmund as being this team that brings in young players and develops them and then sells them on for these absurd amounts of money, they haven't had the best transfer windows overall. They've been, for last window being very good, there's a reason why they had to bring in so many players, because they've had lots of players who haven't quite risen to that next level of expectation. Yeah. And so then they basically have to kind of retool. And so you then don't have the depth that you would have from, say, Bayern Munich. Yeah. And even that with a weakened Bayern Munich, like weakened in quotes, they're going to win the Bundesliga again, but it's not quite that like, oh, they've got this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and they all play the same position, and that's the entire team. It's still, I think, a deeper squad from top to bottom for Bayern in terms of like depth of talent and overall ability than I think it is for Dortmund, and that can't be overlooked either.
Here's the other thing I think is the youth of the defence. They have a lot of very young defenders who at various points in the season have made rough mistakes, right? Achraf Hakimi, the right back, I think he's injured now, so he's not playing for the latter part of the season. Really like aggressive going forward, but often like leaves holes in the back. That's been the story of his season. Dan Axel Zagadou, I think he's still 19 or so. I think Hakimi's also a teenager or early 20s, right? Didn't he have that horrible error against Bayern in the big Der Klassiker? Well, I can't remember if it was a pass or a header, but he essentially set up Robert Lewandowski for a goal that sort of ended Dortmund's hopes of dominating that game. You've got Akanji is a guy I'm a big fan of. He's only 24. He's still young-ish, right? So they lost a lot of experience in like Socrates and guys like that.
Neven Subotic as well.
Yeah, Subotic. Bartra moved on a couple of years ago. So they lost a lot of more experienced defenders, and there's a lot of either teenagers or early 20s guys in the back. And I think you get the occasional, like despite they've actually been really good for the most part, but you get the occasional mistake out of them. And that's part of the downfall.
And I think maybe Roman Bürki still there because you have all that youth. You want somebody veteran between the posts who can sort of lead that team. But I did find myself wondering after watching the game from this weekend, is Roman Bürki the goalkeeper you trust the least playing for a big team? Like, I really, like, every time we see him, he'll pull off a save here and there, but we also see him get beat at the near post or, like, let it go between his legs or, like, misplace a pass and suddenly he's under threat. And I feel like I see him make a lot of decisions that aren't necessarily mistakes, but I just see decisions that make me sort of cock my head to one side and wonder what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I haven't seen enough of him to really have a strong opinion about it, but the little I have seen, I agree 100% with what you just said.
Okay, there we go.
So one way I'd like to sort of rephrase, especially John's question about what went wrong for Dortmund this year is, I really think the question is what went right for Dortmund this year that they managed to be second, given all the problems that we just listed. So I'm essentially saying they were never a title-winning team. They just looked like it for a certain stretch of the season, especially because Bayern was so bad. They wouldn't have been in first place if Bayern had started the season as we expected them to start.
No, and I think Bayern will retool this summer, and I think will be much stronger and probably won't have that dip. They'll still have Niko Kovac there, so you won't have the kind of new manager coming in and figuring stuff out. So it definitely requires Dortmund to go out and invest some money, spend some money. They're going to be selling Christian Pulisic, who I do think is not as big of a loss as he would have been this time last year. So I think they'll be able to spend money, and they'll have money to spend. And I do think that if they strengthen a few spots, then, again, that gap closes even even more.
It does, but then it's this part of... I feel like whenever I'm watching Dortmund, they're constantly rebuilding, right? So it's like sell Pulisic, buy someone new, then they'll lose someone else next year. They might lose Sancho this summer, or maybe the summer after. And it's this constant, Dortmund are a work in progress that's never actually finished. And you've got to hope that one time Bayern have a bad year and we manage to win the league.
Yeah. I think that's worth hoping for.
Dortmund fans would not like hearing that, but I think it's kind of true.
All right. Sorry, Dortmund fans.
Ready for the next question?
I am, and I'll ask it. It comes from Socket Vora, who asks, why don't managers sub off their top players more often or much earlier when their teams have a comfortable lead? This is routine practice in the NBA or NFL to avoid injury risk and reducing wear and tear for a long season. Plus, it gives bench players more game experience. A particular example, there we go, or specific example, offered by Socket would be when Liverpool played bottom of the table Huddersfield just 4 days before their first leg against Barcelona. Salah and Mane played the full 90 minutes, even with a 3-0 lead at halftime.
I think the answer is that you can't sub players back in.
There it is.
Is that it?
That's pretty much it, I think.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, in the NBA, obviously it's rolling subs, right? So if you take your star player out and then the game goes sideways, you can put him back in.
Correct.
NFL, there's constant line changes, right? So you can, rest a wide receiver for multiple plays. Suddenly, you're 3 points down and there's 5 minutes left. Then you're like, oh, Jerry Rice, get back in.
Yeah.
And Jerry Rice is like, but I'm old. And you're like, tough, get back in there.
Yeah, I retired many years ago.
You've got that back brace thing that I see you
I mean, you're totally right. That if you're up by 28 points at halftime, you can rest your quarterback. You can sit out the entire game. But if the opponent comes back, then in the fourth quarter, you can put that quarterback back in.
Yeah.
No such thing for soccer. So if you take out Mohamed Salah and
Sadio
Mane, and then you suddenly concede 2 or 3 goals, and then you're in trouble, you can't put them back in. And also because you made those 2 substitutions, you only have 1 remaining. So you can even only make 1 change on top.
Also, here's my extra reason. This works better as a counterexample to the NBA than the NFL. There's a lot of games in the NBA.
Yeah.
There are only so many games in the Premier League, and honestly, most players want to play, right? Mohamed Salah wants to play soccer, and then there's a few days before the next game. NBA, correct me if I'm wrong again, NBA, I think sometimes you play a couple of days later, and it's really games on top of games on top of games. Whereas with soccer, you get tight schedules sometimes, but there's at least 2, 3, 4 days between games where it's reasonable to play a bit of soccer, then take your rest, play a bit of soccer. I would argue the rest comes in practice.
Yeah.
Maybe you rest players by going easy in practice deeper into the season.
And you can give breaks if the situation allows for it. If you've have a week off somehow, you've managed to make that happen. You can send. I think Man United did that. They did warm weather training this winter, so you can sort of take breaks that way.
Yeah.
And you can even just not play players, which certainly teams
squad
do.
rotation.
Yeah. But I think when you're looking at it for Liverpool this season, the other issue there is that they're trying to remain in the title race. So resting their key attackers, even against a team like Huddersfield. I mean, who would possibly drop points agast Huddersfield? But you still
Wolves
run that risk.
Man United.
That was the joke. Thank you. Thank you.
I thought it was just a Man United joke. It applies to Wolves too. So here's an interesting thing. I want to get your take on this.
I'm not friends with you anymore.
That's fine. You still got to do the rest of the show with me.
Yeah.
It'll just be tense.
All right, we're friends again for now.
Okay, so squad rotation where you do rest someone for an entire game, or maybe you keep him on the bench. Say you kept Mohamed Salah on the bench in reserve in case you needed him. I get that. That's an actual rest, right? Because then you could take the whole game off. If you've already played 45 minutes, is it that much more to play another 45 minutes?
No, I don't think so.
I think I'm with you. I lean towards that. I think once you've played, the damage is kind of done. And an extra 45 minutes or half an hour, I don't think makes that much difference. I'm on tricky ground here because I'm not fully confident saying it, but I think you either play or you don't play, and the minutes don't matter. They add up over the season, but in the specific, before the semi-final on Wednesday or whatever, I don't think it matters that much if you play 45 or 90.
I'm inclined to agree with the exception that I think it also comes down to your preparation for that game. Obviously, professionals not quite dealing with the same issues, but say you and I have had a night out and then we're playing 2 games the next day, probably not very hydrated.
Yep.
So then you can run into that, you're more likely to cramp, you're more likely to run into muscle fatigue or general injuries because you're not as well rested, you're not as well prepared for the game. So assuming that a player is fully hydrated, fully ready to go, yeah, I think playing a half isn't that much different. The only difference that maybe you're more susceptible to injuries if an opponent gets frustrated.
Yeah.
But even then, you're kind of looking at specific moments as opposed to general trends.
So the rest is 0 minutes, right? 45, you've kind of already done it. The damage is done, essentially.
The damage is done. And if the damage is severely done, then you can look to today's sponsor for help.
So nutrition. Nutrition will get you back on your feet.
Yes, because there are plenty of times when preparing for a game the night before, I think, frozen pizza. That should do it. That should put me in the best possible situation. But I'm going to say Figgy's balsamic pork or chicken sausage and spinach ricotta ravioli, probably going to put me in a better situation.
That sounds better to me.
And that's why we're talking about HelloFresh.
I was going to ask which wonderful company is providing these meals for you. It's HelloFresh, the meal kit delivery service that shops, plans, and delivers step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy, then go and get 3 points the next day.
There we go. And and you don't have to worry about...
One of those was not in the official copy.
It was not. I can guess which one. I can also say that maybe if you don't want to spend any mental capacity worrying about grocery shopping because, say, you do have a big game the next day. You've got a Champions League second leg. You got to win it. First one didn't go the way you wanted. But maybe you don't want to have to remember, is the milk we have still good? Do we have enough cream for coffee? Or are we going to run into that frustrating situation where one of us gets coffee and the other one doesn't?
How many figures do I buy for the Figgy pork?
I mean, you got that too. Yeah. So they have got you covered because they send you the exact right amount that you will need to make the recipe so you don't have any excess. You don't have lots of little jars containing lots of little leftover things like half an onion that you didn't end up using.
And maybe if you're one of those people that's scared of recipes, I think you can overcome your fear.
First of all, weird phobia.
There's a phobia for everybody. With the HelloFresh recipe card, it has 6-step pictured recipes that are easy to follow. Even Daryl can do it.
It's like Julia Child's children? Did they have children? And if so, are they scared of recipes? Is it a person who just spent their life being taught recipes? I don't know what it would be.
They're called Julia's Childs.
Okay. I don't think she had kids, but I could be wrong. I don't know these things. It's been a while since I saw that movie.
HelloFresh makes family dinners fuss-free. So if you're a picky eater, they've got kid-tested and approved family plan recipes. We haven't really talked up the family plans because neither of us have kids, right? So we're just doing the couples deal.
Yeah,
not with each other.
I could probably eat a family plan
with
myself.
our spouses.
I'm pretty sure I could put that one.
I mean, why not? Right?
And all meals come together in 30 minutes max. Call for less than 2 pots and pans and require minimal cleanup. That is all very good stuff when you're trying to get dinner done and get on your way.
I have a question. If I have more than 2 pots and pans, do I have to throw some of my pots and pans away, or can I still do it?
That's the requirement.
It is.
Yes.
Wow, it's harsh.
Yeah, I have way too many pots and pans. I could probably do with getting rid of some.
We actually just did a big change-up. We got rid of our old ones and got a whole fresh set from my wife's mother.
That's how they get you. You don't want to go that route, though, because what if you need that pan, Daryl? One day. And that's how you become a hoarder, which is my approach. But if you don't want to become a hoarder, but you do want to check out HelloFresh, for $80 off your first month of HelloFresh, go to HelloFresh.com/TSS80 and enter promo code TSS80.
Did you forget it, then look to me, and then remember it?
No, I usually let you fill it in, and then every time you're like, did you forget it? And so I was going to say it that time, but you were already all over it.
And I still did it.
You did it. So to repeat the offer, just in case maybe the remix didn't help, for $80 off your first month of HelloFresh, go to HelloFresh.com/TSS80.
There
we go. And enter promo code TSS80 at checkout.
It's like receiving 8 meals for free. Thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's show.
I agree. See, now I'm remixing. How do you feel about that one, sir? All right, more questions to get to.
I prefer the original.
But thank you very much to HelloFresh.
Who's asking the next question, Taylor?
I believe it's you, my friend.
Okay, this next question comes from Matthew Graham. Matthew Graham wants to know, if you had to choose one of these variations on penalty shootouts, which would it be? There's a longer version of this question where Matthew Graham makes very clear, full disclosure, he is not a fan of penalty shootouts. He's essentially trying to fix penalty shootouts, right? So 2 variations he offers us. We've got to choose which one we prefer. Variation numero A. Move the shootout shooters back from the penalty spot, which is 12 yards from goal, as we know. That would stay the same for regular penalty kicks, but this is for the shootout. You move the shooters back to the 18-yard line, top of the box, to make it harder for the taker and a bit more favourable for the keeper. So essentially penalty kicks from 18 yards out instead of 12.
Yep.
Okay?
Option the first.
That was option number A. Option 2 is do the shootout.
Cracking yourself up over there.
Do the shootout. If you can't entertain yourself at work, where can you do it? Do the shootout before extra time so that the teams know the outcome of the game if it stays tied. Matthew explains that this tilts the field so that the team that loses the shootout knows they need a goal and have to be more aggressive in extra time. Do you prefer number 1 or number B?
Can you guess what my answer would be?
MLS style / NASL style Dribble from the halfway line shootouts.
You got it. If I had to change it, it would be that. But in terms of these two options...
I'm with you. I would love that.
Number A all the way for me.
Why so?
Because for number 2, first of all, it kind of kills the drama of the penalty shootout because that is part of it, is that it comes down to it as this dramatic moment, and instead you've got this weird thing that happens, then you play extra time, but you might not even need it. So it becomes this weird thing that extends the amount, like the time of the game, which is a reason why that probably would never happen.
Yeah. Well, why would you not even need extra time? It's tied.
No, I'm saying, but then, like, if there's 2 goals at extra time, you didn't need the penalty shootout. So I understand the point is to motivate the team that lost the penalty shootout to be a bit more attacking, but it also feels like a probably 10 to 15 minute thing that you may not end up needing, and especially in tournaments where time is of the essence and teams want to rest, that can add up. But I also just think that it's not really... I don't like that. Maybe just because I'm normal, normal in terms of maybe because I prefer the norm, I guess is what I should have said, is that to me feels very much out of sequence, and it kind of kills the drama of it because instead it's just all right, let's get this done so then we can play extra time.
Because it's a penalty shootout with no finality.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't like that part either because it takes the drama out of the penalty shootout and then it's like, what are we even doing here? Do you like the idea of the extra time where one team knows they have to win and the other team knows, hey, if we can defend for 30 minutes, we're good?
No. Because I think that, I guess theoretically, but I think it's theoretical. And I think in reality, what you end up getting is a team that's ultra defensive and a team that's more attacking. And I don't know if that's that much more exciting to me than 2 teams just going for it, but still adjusting their game plans on the fly.
I would say 30 minutes of that is too much, is part of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
10 minutes of that is exciting. 30 minutes is too long to watch.
Yeah. It feels, honestly, a little bit like an artificial construct that now you're putting pressure on one team to defend and you're putting pressure on one team to attack. And you're removing some of the, we recorded yesterday, the Tottenham coming from behind to beat Ajax. That's Mauricio Pochettino in the game, making adjustments and figuring things out and making little tactical changes so that Tottenham still stay a little bit tighter at the back, but are still able to get goals. That's part of what soccer is to me. That's what part of what coaching is. If it's suddenly but now you have to attack because your team didn't take penalties as well, it's a little less exciting to me.
One point in favour of number 2 is you would actually get a rest. So while you're waiting for the penalty to happen, everybody gets a 10-minute rest or so, apart from the moment you have to step up and take the kick.
Don't you kind of get that anyway, though?
So not that you don't get that long. They get pretty fast into extra time.
I know the switch at halftime is definitely you just switch ends and keep playing.
Yeah. You walk as slowly as you can to the other side of the field to get as many breaths in as possible. Okay, why do we like number 1?
Because I don't like number 2.
Okay. Well, let's at least thought experiment, conceptualize number 1. I'm assuming Matthew's correct that moving the ball 6 yards farther away from goal makes it harder for the penalty kick taker. Does it make it too hard? Or are we in a 50-50 contest with the keeper?
I think it removes a lot of the nuance. I think you can't have a Panenka anymore because that extra distance, I think, gives the goalkeeper time to dive the wrong way, get up and dive the other way. I think you can't quite have the looking the goalkeeper off and then passing it the opposite way because, again, I think if it's a slow pass, maybe the goalkeeper can get it now.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of removes that from the equation, and now you've just kind of got to hit the ball as hard as you can or relatively hard and make sure the goalkeeper or hope the goalkeeper doesn't guess the right way.
What do you think the percentage would be in terms of shot? Because it's obviously, I don't know the actual percentage, but percentage of penalty kicks scored is pretty high, right? Goalkeeper is very much, the odds are not in their favour. Just like in the Hunger Games. When
I knew you were going to shoot more in a Hunger Games
May they
reference.
be in your favour? They're really not, right? It's almost ironic.
Boo. I boo that.
But you get what I'm saying, right? The odds are not in the goalkeeper's favour. Does this make it 50-50?
No. I think it definitely favors the goalkeeper. I think 18 yards out is even for
40-60 to the shooter?
I think so.
So 60-40 to the goalkeeper?
I think so. Generally speaking, yes. Professionals are professionals. They're a bit more accurate than amateurs. But I think, generally speaking, it definitely makes it harder to score goals just because there's more time for a goalkeeper to react. Right now, it is a bit of a guessing thing, right? You kind of have to guess. There's a little bit of either research or preparation, or you're just sort of trying to read it in the moment. But I think from 18 yards away, you can sort of wait and see which direction the ball is going and probably still have a pretty decent chance of saving it. You can't do that when it's 12 yards out.
So from the taker's perspective, it becomes all about deadly accuracy, right? You need David Beckham-style accuracy to sort of bend it into the top corner. So you've got to get it bend away from the goalkeeper's reach, but bend back into the top corner. So your first taker would be Leo Messi, for example, because he's magnificent at that. I actually think you struggle to find 5 players who can consistently strike a ball into the top corner out of the goalkeeper's reach. So that would make it more interesting, at least, because when you know there's only 2 or 3 players on your team who can definitely do this, and then it's all right, Vincent Kompany did it that once. Can he do it again?
We'll find out. There you go.
Well, we won't because this probably isn't going to happen. Right?
It's going to happen for purposes of me saying, that's why we should do number 1 and not number 2.
Okay. I I would be interested to see this experiment.
All right. I would be interested to see the next experiment offered by Ross Baran, or I guess questioned by Ross Baran.
It's a hypothetical situation. Do you want me to ask it?
No, I can do this one.
Go on, then.
It's the Gold Cup final, USA versus Mexico. Carlos Vela has maintained his current form and is tearing it up. What does the United States do? Do they have anyone capable of playing left back well enough to keep him in check?
So if you're not familiar with Carlos Vela, he's playing for the LAFC. He is playing on the right wing, using his left foot, cutting inside, and consistently scoring. Actually, very top corner. He'd be one of my picks to take an 18-yard penalty.
Really?
Yeah. All right. With his left foot. So Ross is essentially asking, what does the US do if we're going to shut down Carlos Vela in the Gold Cup final? This may be a thing we have to find out, hopefully in a couple of months.
Do you have suggestions?
I have lots of suggestions. There are various ways of dealing with this. Well, I want to preface it by saying, right now, if we start sort of attacking left back, then we're in trouble, right? So I'm approaching this as like, this is the only problem we're going to try and solve. Because there are multiple other problems, and maybe you focus too much on one thing, you lose the game elsewhere. So maybe the US are better not thinking about this and just going and attacking. But for the purpose of answering Ross's question, I'm going to focus very specifically. I would play a centre-back at left-back.
Okay.
Maybe Aaron Long, someone like that. But I also think it's really important to have cover to the interior, right? The most important thing is not necessarily who's left back. It's what does the left centre back do, and it's what does the defensive midfielder do.
Okay.
So when Carlos Vela on the right starts cutting in from the left, I want a left centre back who's capable of stepping out, recognising when it's happening, stepping out and blocking the shot. If it's John Brooks, I'm just asking John Brooks to please do that. And I think I'd have like a Tyler Adams type player who can cover ground quickly at defensive midfield to scurry on over there and get in Carlos Vela's face before he can get the shot away. So it's not all on the left back. I think it's on at least 3 players.
So Tyler Adams not playing right back for you?
I guess not in this situation, right? If I'm really focused on just shutting this down.
Yeah, I think if we're like fully embracing this question, then I think the idea would be that this is like the primary way that Mexico have been scoring in the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
Because I am also
every goal has been a Carlos Vela goal, cutting in from the right, hitting it left-footed, and we've got to shut this down.
Or thereabouts. Doesn't have to be an absolute. But yeah, but I say that just to say that like I am not a big fan of game planning for one specific threat.
Same.
Because if suddenly, to your point, if you're committing 3 players in the scenario of it's only been Carlos Vela, we got to shut him down.
No one like Chicharito is
Yeah,
fine.
Exactly. Or Raul Jimenez. We don't need to worry about this guy who can run and score headers and be very dangerous in the box. Like, so that's where I am with it. Is like I think I agree more or less. I think I had Aaron Long. I was curious if you were going to put Christian Pulisic in there, just because there was that moment this past weekend where we thought he was going to be playing left back for Dortmund,
right back.
And I did wonder if maybe Daryl was going to think like, get him in there, see what happens.
No, he would not be my choice.
Tyler Adams and Christian Pulisic are our fullbacks now.
Here's the other reason I went Aaron Long is Aaron Long not left-footed, right-footed, so he would be defending with his stronger foot when Vela steps inside.
Yeah.
So we got that going for us as well.
Yeah. I think that I wouldn't mind seeing like what Anthony Robinson can do in this situation.
Get beat, I think is the answer.
Maybe, but I guess I feel like the United States, I want to see. It is the measure of a good coach, yes, to be able to find players who fit your system, but you've also got to be able to, if you can't find a player that specifically fits exactly what you need, find a player who can like listen to your instruction, listen to your coaching, adjust what they do. And I would like to see Greg Berhalter maybe take that approach instead of sort of like not saying that he's just like found people that just fit exactly what he wants to do and that's it, but I want to see if he can coach that, if he can find somebody who's a very good left back in an attacking sense, maybe has some work to do defensively. I wouldn't mind seeing with specific instruction and a little bit more assistance because I do think that the help on that side has been lacking in games that we've seen Anthony Robinson. Maybe a little bit more help and a little bit more cover. Maybe he looks a little bit better.
That sounds good to me. So the other option would be like Tim Ream, who he's put out there at left back. I kind of don't see Tim Ream being fast enough once Vela cuts to the inside. I feel like you've got Tim Ream sort of chasing after him and not quite getting there. And it also got me thinking that maybe it isn't the left back's job because once Vela cuts inside, because the left back is sort of on the wrong side of him, it becomes someone else's job as soon as it starts to happen, right? So
as long as it's coordinated and they're passing him off, yes. If everyone else is backing off, then no, it's definitely the left.
So maybe
back's
that's
job.
the key. It's you need communication across the back line of like once he sort of crosses a certain threshold, it's the left centre back's job or it's the defensive midfielder's job. It's not the left back's job to go chasing after him.
And you're not going to throw Dan Lovitz into this equation?
I don't know. I don't know enough about him.
Yeah.
Right? Like he did well that game I saw, but I just don't know enough about him. I don't watch a lot of Montreal Impact.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I was just kind of throwing you under the bus there because I don't know either.
Hey,
so throw it to you.
That bus ran straight over me and I got up fine on the other side.
Fabian Johnson, you want to put him in there?
No.
Okay. That's fair.
I'm not a fan of his defensive work.
That's also
his
fair.
defensive over is not my favourite.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, do you feel that we have sufficiently answered Ross's question?
I mean, I think it's telling that there weren't that many options that we could kind of go back and forth and debate the merits of. Yeah, I think given the way the kind of player pool has evolved under Greg Berhalter or not evolved under Sarah Cannon-Arena and Jurgen Klinsmann, yeah, I think that options are slightly more limited than we would like, so I think it will take some gamesmanship if it is Carlos Vela tearing it up in the Gold Cup.
Oh, actually, I have one extra question on this.
Right.
Assuming John Brooks is the left centre-back, do we rate him or trust him enough to be the guy that steps out and blocks a Vela shot, given that we've seen him sometimes get in trouble when he's in one-on-one situations?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I do. I'm not sure.
Are you picturing this more crowded as well? Like, the US is back defending. It's not like he's one-on-one with Vela and on an island like he was against Costa Rica multiple times.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still not sure who his right center-back partner is because
Matthew Miazga?
I mean, I guess so, but it seems like it might end up being Aaron Long for the Gold Cup. So then if we've got Aaron Long starting at left back, then we got to figure out what to do at right back.
This is a very Gilles situation, right?
Yeah.
He's a left back and a right
Can
centre-back.
we start him both spots? Is cloning okay?
He's the new Kelly O'Hara.
Yes.
Okay, I think that was a bit of genius from us.
I think so.
And today's show
I
is
see what you've
sponsored
done.
by Policy Genius. I did the same segue from yesterday, essentially.
That's fine. That's fine. And we can say that it was raining yesterday. It's a nicer day today, which I think is symptomatic of spring. It's warm, it rains, then stuff grows because it rained. And since it's spring, it's the time of year when seeds grow into flowers. There you go. And you grow up financially, at least, hopefully. Your family needs protection if something happens to you, and that means you need life insurance.
Policy Genius makes it easy to get that financial security without the growing pains.
And if you're a hapless U.S. left back and you get murdered by Carlos Vela, then your family definitely needs life insurance.
Do you think they pay out for getting sort of metaphorically murdered on the soccer
I feel
field?
like it depends on how bad the defensive performance was.
If it has 10,000 or more tweets saying this man had a family,
There we go.
then
that's it.
Then it pays
Then
out.
it pays out double, in fact. 10,000 on Twitter, definitely.
I mentioned on the last ad about these sort of two tracks that it gives you about do you want help or not. We won't go into that again. The key part about Policy Genius is once you've entered your information and you said sort of you can essentially tell them what kind of policy you're looking for. You're looking for a gigantic life insurance payout or a smaller one. How much are you willing to pay per month? You enter all those variables and then you get the list of options and you can shop and compare through the various companies. Companies like, I don't know, AIG and other big insurance companies will show you the rates and then you select from amongst them. Imagine going to all those different websites and putting that information in over and over and over again. Don't do that. Go to policygenius.com, just do it once and you'll see all the rates.
I don't want to do that because I think I would struggle to name more life insurance companies than I would U.S. left backs. So there you go. And it's worth noting, once you apply, the Policy Genius team will handle all the paperwork and red tape, so there's no commission, no hidden fees, just financial protection and peace of mind with no strings attached, which I appreciate because I don't like the idea of like wanting life insurance. Say you're like a new mother, a new father, you've got twins all of a sudden. You want to make sure that those twins are protected. You don't want it to get to the end of the whole thing and have them be like, oh, by the way, it'll be a $200 activation fee. And suddenly you feel a little bit swindled.
So we guarantee that does not happen.
We do.
It's also not just life insurance. Policy Genius also makes it easy to compare and buy home insurance, auto insurance, and disability insurance.
There we are. So next time you stop to smell the roses and pull out your phone and head to policygenius.com. You can do both.
Policy Genius, spring is here. Note, spring may not be here, depending on where you live.
Yeah.
Kick it off by nipping life insurance in the bud. Hello to any Australian listeners.
And England as well? Has spring sprung in England?
Not according to the Liverpool game.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Few more questions to get to today. Up next is Todd Brannon. Would you consider this a successful season for Cameron Carter-Vickers? That's for both club and country, I believe.
Interesting. Yeah, so he played a bunch for Dave Sarachan. He did not play for Greg Berhalter. He was called up for the under-23 squad in March to play for Jason Christ. That's his international career. His club career, he's been on loan at Swansea City this season, and he's played most of the games, right? And he's established himself as usually one of their three centre-backs, either the middle centre-back or the left centre-back.
Most is a word. 23 starts and 7 substitute appearances.
It's not so bad. It's not so bad.
It's 30 of 46.
Yeah, okay. So do we consider it a successful season? We went back and watched some footage of Cameron Carter-Vickers, right, to see what we've noticed in terms of improvements in his game. All we can say, before we get into that, all we can say is he has established himself with a championship team a 10th place championship team.
Yeah. And that right there, I'm not running for a public office, I promise, but I'm going to say I think the answer to this depends on how you define success.
Yeah.
Because if you define it as has played himself into contention to play for Tottenham's senior team next year in the Premier League, I don't think he's done that. I really don't. I think to get a permanent move somewhere, maybe to Swansea, maybe to another championship team, I think he's probably done that.
Maybe a low-end Premier League team?
Maybe.
So, yeah, I'm going to call this
depending on their style. Yeah.
I'm going to call this a success because he's finally got loads and loads of minutes. Seems to be quite well respected by Swansea City staff and fans.
Staff definitely, yeah.
With a few quibbles here and there from fans for certain performances.
Here, I got one for you. Swansea assistant Billy Reid says, we asked him to step into the game with the ball, and the progress he's made in that area has been exceptional. He's been a big, big part of the run we've been on.
Okay, so step into the game with the ball means playing out of the back a bit more. A lot has been made of his passing completion percentage.
91.6.
Which is really high. It's a lot of passing to the other centre-backs,
That's
right?
a key thing.
From the footage that we saw.
We found that out because we did the Y-Scout thing where you can watch all of the passes, and we very quickly changed the categories that we were looking at because it was just a lot of, I bet he's going to pass to the left centre back. I bet he's going to pass to the right centre back.
And there are the occasional line breaking passes or passes out to wing backs. There are a lot of long diagonal passes, and let's just say he is not quite Virgil van Dijk, at least not yet.
No.
Some of them found the target. Some of them were overhit.
I think the ones that found the target, generally speaking, were the ones when he had a lot of time to pick his head up, find the runner, played the ball. Most of the time he's under pressure. It felt like it was either just a clearance to get rid or a kind of ball, a hopeful ball in the direction of a runner, but not necessarily an accurate ball.
And here's the other thing we noticed, very good in the air. For a guy who's not huge, right? He's not a 6'4" kind of dude. He's like 6 foot, maybe a little shorter, maybe 5'11". He does win a lot of balls in the air, wins a lot of aerial duels based on the footage that we saw. We watched a lot of him winning headers, essentially.
We did. And he's very good at that. He likes a fight, basically. He likes to kind of body up to an attacker. It's the way Fernando Llorente kind of goes against a defender. It seems to be what Cameron Carter-Vickers likes.
I want to get into this.
But I don't know if that's great because it's definitely good. It stops any sort of like settle and turn from the attacker. There's that pressure on them right away. And if they're not very good technically, that might mean they miss control. They don't quite take it the way they wanted to, or he outjumps them and wins the header. But again, as we talked about yesterday, then you can have the situation of like Matthias de Ligt where they're so focused on winning that tussle in that battle that they themselves could make a bad play, or they can overcommit and get turned.
Here's my take on it. What he's doing, I mean, it's weirdly obvious, right? Just when an attacker receives the ball, he goes and just gets right up the back of them, and then he's able to sort of, I think, use his strength to like jostle and put that attacker off, shake the ball loose a little bit, and then you get a foot either he scoops it around the side or through the legs or something, or enough to just get a poke away tackle, right? I think it's kind of good enough for the championship. I think when we saw him in the FA Cup against Manchester City, he wasn't bad by any stretch, but you did see him give away a lot of fouls and get beat a few times because the elite attackers know how to take advantage of a defender that fully commits to like full body contact and try and jostle the ball loose.
Yeah, he's not speaking a language of subtlety.
Yes, that's true.
That's the way I'm going to put that. Yeah. So I think then you look at the games where he did seem to excel for Swansea, it's games when he has time on the ball, when he's not coming under immediate high press or high pressure from the opponent. It's when he's able to kind of step out and know he has cover behind, then he can step out and win those balls. He is good in those aerial challenges, again, because I think he likes a tussle. And
he's got good timing and I think good perception of what's going on there.
Yeah, so I think that he's about found his level for right now. Now, maybe he came into this season, he had trouble getting starts in the beginning. Joe Rodon gets injured. That's when he starts to get more minutes. And basically since January, he becomes a consistent starter. So maybe next season with a full preseason, I think he has indicated that he would be open to a move, either another loan to Swansea or a permanent move to Swansea. The fee for CCV has been mooted between £5 million and £25 million. Make of that what you will. I'm guessing it's closer to 5. So I think that basically he's indicated he's okay to play at that level. And I do think if, say, he got that either a loan or permanent move to Swansea where he had a preseason, he gets a little bit more comfortable, then I think his game elevates to the next level because he's kind of established himself in their system. Now he's got to kind of fine-tune a little bit.
Okay, so he also signed a new contract with Spurs, last year?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe in the summer, that goes through 2021, which you could take as, all right, he's part of our long-term plans. We eventually see him playing alongside Vertonghen or Alderweireld or replacing one of them. Or they signed it so that they can sell him instead of his contract running down. Right? You keep someone in contract so that you can sell them for a better transfer fee. Based on what we saw, I think that is way more likely. So to answer Todd's question, would you consider it a successful season? if you are looking for CCV to play for the Spurs first team, I would say no, because he hasn't shown enough. Because you watch Vertonghen, watch Alderweireld, watch Davinson Sanchez, he's almost there with them. These are top level defenders. Cameron Carter-Vickers, though very good, is kind of a championship defender. He looks very at home in the championship.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would agree that then if you extend that to the national team, it's telling to me that when we were having the conversation earlier about like who could fill in at left back, and if it is Aaron Long or say Matt Miazga's injured, who's the other center back? I have concerns if it's Cameron Carter-Vickers right now. I think he would be my dad's favorite player for the national team because he wants someone who like fights for everything and scraps for everything and never gives up. And I think that's Cameron Carter-Vickers. But I don't know if that's what we need right now in terms of a national team center back. So maybe if he continues to develop, then great. We could use him. But right now, I would say no. I still think it is a more successful season than unsuccessful.
Yes, I agree. In terms of national team stuff, to be successful and like be a real contender to start for the national team, he's got to be hitting line-breaking passes, the type that Miazga and Brooks make, the kind of stuff that Greg Berhalter loves. His passing has improved, but not enough to be at that level once again, right? So same thing with maybe starting for the national team and starting for Spurs. Improvement, but not enough to like take that giant leap forward where you can really say, CCV is going to be playing out of the back. It'll look great.
Yeah.
One element is maybe, to Ross's question, if it's when Vela cuts across and we just want someone to go and body Carlos Vela, maybe we just glue Cameron Carter-Vickers to Carlos Vela, and that makes it really tough. Yeah. Maybe he's our left back.
Maybe the problem has been that
for the Gold Cup final against Vela.
Maybe the issue is that like Jimenez has been bringing the ball down, turning and playing in Carlos Vela, and you need someone to just step to Jimenez and make sure he never turns. That's Cameron Carter-Vickers, and then it works out. But yes, for right now, I'm going to say mostly successful, but not quite. Certainly not at the level where we thought he might be a couple years ago of like starting for Tottenham and captaining their U23 side as a 17-year-old.
Their U23s as a 17-year-old. We really thought the sky is the limit, and it turns out maybe the championship is the limit. At least for now.
At least for now. Because I don't want to keep it going, but I do want to add because I'm finding myself thinking about like Premier League teams that could use him.
Yeah.
And I struggle because it's not a team that's going to be like big on building out of the back, being a possession. I don't necessarily think that's his strong suit right now. But then you look at a team like Burnley, who have a defensive system. They're very defensive. They're very physical.
Yeah.
But then
it's the new Ben Mee with a much longer name.
Well, the question I would have then,
Burnley need more syllables.
I mean, maybe just abbreviates to like CV, Cameron CV. But like then. I don't know enough about him to know, like, does he figure out a system quickly? Because that's what Burnley are all about. That's what Sean Dyche is all about. It's about, like, play the system, like decrease the percentage likelihood of chances and expected goals and benefit from it. I don't know if he fits there either. So it probably comes down to, like, a team that wants a battling center back.
Yeah.
So basically, if West Brom get promoted, then maybe.
Or Villa, short on centre backs.
Okay.
There's a chance he ends up in a lower end Premier League team. Okay, ready for the next question?
I think so.
It's from Brendan Massa. Brendan Massa wants to know, when you daydream about a title or cup-winning goal for your favourite team, so Man United for you, Wolves for me, what does it look like? Is it a wonder strike, a team goal, or an inch-perfect pass?
So to be totally honest, I kind of misunderstood this question at first because I thought it was like, what moment like in a time when Manchester United won a cup or title do you think about fondly? And I think after some discussion, I'm realizing that it's more about like when you're fantasizing about your team winning.
Yeah.
And I guess
remember, some of our teams don't win cups and leagues all the time. Remember that?
Manchester United being one of them.
I mean, now,
and I think maybe that's part of it, I guess. But my honest answer is I kind of don't do that. And I don't mean to be like a stick in the mud or anything like that. It's just that's not what I think about when I think about Manchester United. It's more about how can they actually win? What do they need to do to get back to it? What would I like to see them do? But it's never like, one day they're going to be back and it's going to be Paulo Dybala chipping in Paul Pogba for like a great volley from outside of the box or something like that.
Yeah, you just pictured it.
I mean, but not really. It's not really that because then maybe it's just the way my brain is wired, but I'm instantly like, but I don't really want them to sign Dybala. And Paul Pogba's going to Real Madrid, so that's not going to work.
So you just start bashing down your own dream as soon as you've had it.
Because I guess that's where my brain is. Like, it won't let me go to that level because it sticks in reality.
Well, it has been a rough few years since Ferguson.
I mean, but I think that's honestly, I think that's kind of how I've always been. Like the way I was explaining this to you off air is like my wife loves going on Zillow and looking at houses that are for sale because she like fantasizes about like what could we do with this room and what would we do there. And I think I'm just consistently again a stick in the mud because I'm just like, but we're not going to buy a house, so why?
You would have one.
We have a house. Let's focus on like.
What are you starting an empire?
Why don't we do? Let's go like clean up a little bit, organize some things, and then maybe we'll like our house more. Like that is genuinely how I work. And again, that kind of relates to Manchester United.
Clean up Man United, maybe I like it more.
Exactly. Let's do a little bit of renovation. Let's hire a technical director, and let's see where the house ends up / Manchester United ends up.
So I can answer this question.
Sure.
I actually deliberately answered this question by not overthinking it. I just thought, okay, picture a Wolves goal where you're celebrating. Like, imagine if they had won the FA Cup, which, we were one game away from getting to the FA Cup final. So I thought of it as like, what's the daydreamy way of winning the FA Cup final? The first thing that came to my head is a long-range volley. And I think it's because last season, Ruben Neves trained me to expect glorious long-range volleys to win matches, and it's just in my head now that is the way to score magnificent goals.
I find this hysterical, and I think part of this is cultural. That I don't know why I find this so funny that you're English and I'm an American, but when I hear you say that and you're like, "Here's how I picture them winning the FA Cup," my response is like, so we're focused on the FA Cup now? That's how it's gone? That's how the season's gone?
Which is just something that was attainable for Wolves, right? They're not going to win the Premier League title with a glorious
you don't know, man. You don't know how they're going to invest. They might buy the rest of the Portugal squad and then see how it all plays out.
Hey, let's do it. Maybe not Ronaldo. Here's a way maybe for you to answer this. Right. What about you? If you picture yourself scoring, doesn't have to be League Cup, scoring a match-winning goal for the amateur team we play on, or for Richmond City that you also play for, how do you visualize yourself scoring it? Is it the type of goal I've seen you score a lot?
What's that?
Kind of dribbling?
I promise I'm not.
Kind of dribbling and then shoot in the corner?
No, it's probably more of the like I had one this season that is kind of my dream goal where I think it came out and I think I thighed it over a defender and then took it out of the air on a volley and scored that one. It's probably something that's a combination of the pretty volley with the technical...
A bit of technique and control in the middle.
I can tell you that when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, so not that long ago, but still long enough ago, it was definitely scoring a long-range volley and then getting crushed at the same time because it wasn't enough to score the game-winning goal. You then have to get in the ambulance and everybody's worried, is he going to be okay? Yeah. It was definitely a lot of drama for 14-year-old Taylor.
I feel like a therapist would have a lot to say about that.
What do you mean? It's not enough to score.
You've got to get hurt doing it and get the extra attention.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. It doesn't count if you don't get hurt, Daryl. That's what the movies have taught me.
You want everyone chasing after you, applauding.
John McClane isn't pretty at the end of Die Hard, Daryl.
That's true.
There's got to be struggle.
Is that why you always play barefoot?
Exactly, yes.
And sprinkle glass everywhere.
I mean, it's a risky strategy, but yes.
All right, for me, when I picture myself daydreaming about scoring a match-winning goal, which is something I do a lot.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Header?
No.
Okay.
Specifically because the type of goals I have scored are normally not glorious. So when I'm daydreaming, I picture myself doing a thing, probably the thing I do least in a soccer match, I always want to do more, is dribbling. You've seen me play a lot. I don't really take people on. And I always wish that I just took people on more. So when I picture a match-winning goal, it might have a 1-2 in it, but it definitely involves me going past someone. Going past one or two people.
Same point that you just made about me. I feel like, again, a therapist could maybe dissect that a little
bit.
Yeah. Why don't you feel comfortable?
The thing I want to do the most is the thing I don't do.
Well, but also, because I did find myself wondering, what do you think it is that stops you from doing it? Is it a fear of being a defender and getting caught out? Or is it...
No, it's... I think I'm overly responsible when I play. I'm always thinking about marking. I'm always thinking about defending. I'm always thinking about not losing the ball. So I tend to look for a pass. And honestly, I look for a pass to a more attacking player like you or someone else. And it never occurs to me that I might be the guy that needs to do a step over and a cut and go. And maybe it is in case I lose the ball and then we have to defend. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm a little too safety first for wanting to do that much dribbling.
You're lucky,
but when I daydream, I'm all dribbling.
You're lucky the season's over.
Why is that?
Because I would just, in our next game, I would just keep giving you the ball and just, not dribble at all. I'd just pass it right back to you. Be like, nope, you got to dribble. And if you passed it to somebody else, I'd, go get it off of them and pass it back to you. No. Time for you to dribble, sir.
This is maybe a little too inside baseball. We've been talking about in our practices of maybe getting people
giving away secrets?
To overcome their habits. So maybe if you sort of set my habit as not dribbling enough, you get me to dribble more in practice.
All right.
Yeah.
And my thing I have to overcome is screaming at geriatric referees. But you know what? If you stand 20 yards behind the offside line, I'm going to yell at you. That's how it works. That's how it works.
Especially if you get the calls wrong.
Yes.
Naming no names.
But also that guy. We're naming no names because we don't know his name, but he knows who he is. I'm sure he's listening, and I'm sure he's heard. He did tell me that now would be a good time to be quiet, to which I responded, "Oh, would it?" And then I walked away.
I was yelling at him as well. I thought he was talking to me.
He probably was. You and I are usually pretty good about not losing our cool. You especially. Yeah, we lost it a little bit on Sunday. On a couple of occasions.
That one made me mad.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
all right.
Because it was just clearly wrong. All right.
We have deviated from the topic.
People don't
let's
need to
get back
this.
to it. Final question on the day comes from Andrew McGalliard, who asks, why don't we see more MLS teams also having women's teams?
So essentially, MLS teams with co-ownership of NWSL teams, right? And for those who don't know, there are 4 teams in the NWSL. Don't worry, there hasn't been a contraction. There are 4 teams of the 8 teams in the NWSL that I think it's really important to say they're not owned by MLS teams, but there's an ownership group that owns both an NWSL team and an MLS team. Utah Royals shares ownership group with Real Salt Lake, Orlando Pride with, you guessed it, Orlando City, Houston Dash with Houston Dynamo, and Portland Thorns with Portland Timbers. That is the setup in NWSL right now.
I have a question for you, because I genuinely don't know the answer to this. Is part of the nuance to this that technically, even if you own an MLS team, you don't actually own that team. You own like their percentage stake of the league? Because isn't that how it works?
Well, there's also that
single
going on
entity?
As well. Yeah, NWSL is also single entity.
Yeah, so there you go.
So you buy into the league.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that maybe explains part of it, why you don't have that. But I think the larger issue of why you don't have more MLS teams, I guess not necessarily owning or but having a women's team affiliated with them, is I think money. I think MLS clubs still don't have that much money.
They're not profit centers.
No, they're not. And you have plenty of DC United, Minnesota United still have like pay-to-play academies. They're going to fix that pretty soon, I believe. But you still, that's indicative to me of the sort of situation with a lot of teams in Major League Soccer and how they're trying to develop players to play for their teams. And then I think other teams that like to help grow the women's game, for example, I think that's very much secondary to a lot of owners and organizations.
And if you think of it as an ownership group, say it's an LLC, which I looked into this, most of these are LLCs, right? The LLC is responsible for, financing one team. If you're sort of struggling to keep up with that, why would you add a second team that you're trying to finance as well? You just put an extra strain on your resources, right? So I think the main thing is just ownership groups don't want to spend the extra money to run a whole extra team. You got to staff up, you got to roster up, you got to get infrastructure in place. You got to maybe share a stadium. Then suddenly you make your stadium situation way more complicated, or you need some sort of secondary stadium. It gets really complicated once you're trying to run two teams.
NYCFC, where would their women's team play their games? Are they going to also play at Yankee Stadium? Because that's already difficult. So you've got to find them somewhere else.
At the Met
Stadium? Then you're paying a lot more money to have to deal with a lot of other issues. Worth noting, I think LAFC are exploring it. I think Mia Hamm has talked about that publicly, so maybe there will be a fifth. And maybe
there's a lot of money behind LAFC, right? Don't they have like 500 owners and half of them are celebrities?
Yep.
Yeah, like Will Ferrell's always with the Falcon. And
yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, so I think LAFC might be one. I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta looked into something in the near to medium future.
Because Arthur Blank's got the money, right? It would not be a problem for him to have another team on his roster of teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, I think this is maybe a good time to mention that the Barcelona situation, not least because I read about it and tweeted about it.
Yeah.
So Barcelona have been looking into buying into NWSL and having a Barcelona franchise in NWSL, right? The sticking point, it turns out, I read this in Sports Media Pro, is that it's the jersey, not sponsorship, but the jersey manufacturing deal. So single entity, Nike, their deal with NWSL ends in 2019. Barcelona's deal goes through 2023. And Barcelona are essentially saying, hey, if we join the league, even though it's single entity and we're buying into that, we want to just be able to maintain all our own manufacturing deal with Nike, for one thing. If you guys change, then we're not changing. Also, our own sponsorships as well. So they want to keep keep it separate, essentially, because I think they want to be able to sell. They have their own in the Women's Liga. I can't remember the name of it. And they have the Barcelona team there. I think they have the same jersey sponsorship, the same everything. So then they can just sell the entire product, right? If you then have to clash with the single entity rules about the official pain relief of NWSL is this, but then the Barcelona one is this, then suddenly there's a clash. They want exceptions to that, and NWSL will not give them those exceptions.
The other question I had about this, I do want to talk more about that, but my other question was, did you read where they would be looking to put said Barcelona team?
No, I read speculation, but none of it official, that maybe LA or Miami.
Okay.
Somewhere sunny.
That's about what I figured.
Yeah.
And then it's worth clarifying, because this did seem to confuse some people. It's not as though Barcelona would then move their women's team to the United States. It would be a Barcelona, basically, feeder system for their women's team, pretty much.
And it might be called Barcelona Los Angeles or something like that, or Barcelona Miami, I would assume. The thing is then...
Inter Miami, Barcelona. Do it.
Where would the best players go? If there was a really great player who was neither Spanish nor American, say a great French player, do they play for the Barcelona in Spain team, or do they play for the Barcelona in the NWSL team? You'd find out the hierarchy of their women's teams once they have two. Yeah.
I mean, and that's probably another concern for NWSL, because if it goes the European route, then suddenly you're looked at as a reserve league.
Yes.
Or you've got a reserve team in there. That's probably not a thing they're too inclined to go for.
So it feels to me like, I mean, I've no inside knowledge, but it feels to me like maybe this isn't happening. And maybe because of the single entity structure, you'll run into a lot of problems with teams, big European teams, who want to maintain their sort of brand identity.
Yeah. And I want to say this, like, I don't have all the facts, obviously. I'm not an expert when it comes to the NWSL. But I will say I understand where NWSL is coming from with this.
Yeah.
Because similar to Major League Soccer, like even a few years ago, but certainly when they like contracted and got rid of the Tampa Bay and Miami franchises, like the league is still not necessarily under threat, but it's still in a risky position. And
Boston Breakers folded.
There you go.
Yeah, Utah Royals, that team exists because someone had to buy the Kansas City franchise because that was struggling.
Yeah, and so if you're the league and you're looking at it as like, no, we need sponsors, and those sponsors want assurances that every team is going to be using that and they're going to be the official provider of blank for the entire league, you have to be able to give that, because otherwise, if you give one exception to one team, you kind of give it to everybody else, and then you're losing a source of revenue that you need as a league. Now, maybe that's me looking too much as like at the league and them needing to protect themselves, and maybe if the individual teams do it, then they'll be better for it and the quality will improve.
Yeah.
But I understand why NWSL would be hesitant to give away those rights or those kind of responsibilities, and certainly understand why they'd be hesitant to do so to a team who may then end up having like a farm team in the United States.
I think I'm confident in making this argument. Single entity, you can argue with MLS. Maybe we've gone beyond the point of needing to be secure and safe, where maybe we can start loosening things up, right? Which is what they do with the designated players and TAMs. That's their way of loosening things up. We could loosen things up more, a lot more, right? NWSL, even though it's the longest running professional women's league now, it's still somewhat in survival mode, right? So for me, single entity makes sense because it offers financial protections. At least in the short term, it makes sense. So I wouldn't be too mad if they just hold the line and say, no, Barca, we're not giving you all these sort of exceptions. We have to maintain our structure. So it would make sense to me.
Yeah. I
even though I'd kind of like to see a Barcelona team over here because I think it would look kind of cool.
I would have no problem with that. I do wish Major League Soccer would not have a one uniform supplier, equipment supplier, like for the entire league.
Yeah.
Because,
and at least they should have different jerseys if they did that.
There you go. That would be nice. But it's also like, I think because MLS has like, there's a lot of very like intense local fandom for different teams.
Yeah.
I feel like you could get like local manufacturers, and you could get different approaches, and you could get like small startups that want to be larger equipment providers. Kind of coming in and being competitive.
Oh, that's interesting.
I would enjoy deviation from the kind of standard template jerseys that we've seen in recent memory.
But there's just too much money, right? Like when Adidas strikes that deal with MLS, I think they pay pretty handsomely. And so it's worth it to Major League Soccer to strike that deal, even if you get some pretty bland uniforms out of it.
Strike that deal.
Strike that deal. A deal you might want to strike with us is to go to TotalSoccerShow.com/join, where you can then financially support the show. If you subscribe at $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer one of your listener questions per month right here on the Total Soccer Show. Unless the question is like, list your 100 favourite players of all time.
Yeah, I could probably do that.
I mean, you could, but it would take the whole show.
It'd be a really boring show.
It'd just be you reading 100 names, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I would require you to write them down, I think.
Yeah, and a bit of advice for people asking questions. We answer a lot of questions, right? But we only manage to answer a very small percentage of the questions we get, because a lot of questions go to TotalSoccerShow.com/questions. Here's a question asking tip. Keep it short. Just one, maybe two short sentences with a question mark at the end. Those are our favourite questions to answer.
Yeah, and Daryl always likes ones that begin with like, Daryl sure is handsome, and here's my question. That'll get you right to the top of the queue.
You know we're going to get at least one of those.
Probably. I also feel like naming our 20 favorite players is a show that Jason Davis has done. I feel like that's the thing that he would have done in the past. Like I could see him like discussing amongst himself who his favorite players
amongst
are.
himself.
And he could pull it off and make it entertaining.
He could. That's why he's a very talented man.
There we are.
A reminder again, Jason has his new podcast,
he
right?
does.
Miscellaneous FC. Misc FC. Yeah.
That's the proper title,
Peter,
yes.
Yeah, Misc FC. You guys had a debate about what it was actually called, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Speaking of mixed stuff, we should wrap this up.
I suppose so.
Yeah. So this is the Thursday show. I think we won't be doing a Friday show, not least because by the time you hear this, I will have started my latest round of chemotherapy. So I'm going to be taking a few days off for that. Taylor, I assume, will be back on Monday with the weekend review of the Premier League finale. It's the final episode of the Premier League.
With not a lot of drama, aside from the title race.
How many dragons in the Premier League?
No
Just
comment. Do not answer that one.
Just Cardiff.
Are they still in there? What? Oh, yeah, I guess for now they are.
Yeah, for now. They've got one more game.
One more
to play.
game, yeah. I was like, what? What's happening? What's going on?
So I will say, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today and all this week.
There are 40 dragons.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we will be back with more Total Soccer Show next week.
So, see what's that all along?